Haji Rozan Yunos, welcome to IZZY Does It.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As we've talked about a lot prior to this
Yes, we did.
recording.
Yes.
Yeah, we've already covered so much, but we're gonna touch on some subjects that we spoke about earlier.
Okay.
But I just want to begin by saying that you are one of our most requested guests. Every single time people have the opportunity to suggest a name to me, your name is on that list. And I just want to tell you that you've always been on my list, regardless of whether people suggest you to me or not. But it's only a matter of when.
Okay, thank you.
And your recent post actually prompted me to be like, okay, maybe this is the perfect time to have you on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah. But for now, I want to understand your journey of how you came to be where you are today.
Oh,
Yes, and I think it's very fascinating. So if you don't mind taking us back to even way before you started. Yeah, as far as you can remember and as far as you are willing to share with us.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think let me remind the people who's watching your video.
Okay.
I am 60 years old. I turned 60 a month ago. So it's been I would say it's been a very, very long life for me in that sense, I remembered when my grandfather was 60 years old. I mean, I looked at him, at that time I was about 8 years old. And I looked at him and I said, wow, this is what 60 looks like. And now I'm 60. But let's just go back to where we started. I probably have an unusual childhood in the sense that my father is a Bruneian, but my mother is actually from Johor.
Okay.
And interestingly, they met through, in today's world, we have all this Tinder and so on. But in those days, all they had was the so-called pen pal column, where people actually posted photos of themselves at the back of magazines and so on. There's usually a very interesting section in this older, if you ever have a chance to look at it, in these older magazines and so on. There's always a pen pal section where people actually write to the magazines and put up their photos and write a little bit about themselves with the address and so on.
God.
So then other people will look at it and say, oh, that person looks interesting, I shall write to them.
Yeah.
So this was the days when there was no phone or whatever,
Yes.
so it was actually pure writing. And my father found my mother, I can't remember whether it's my mother who posted or my father posted, but it doesn't really matter. They wrote to each other and they eventually met. Eventually it took them a long time to meet. I mean, it was not like, Taroskan, simply because she was in Johor, my father was in Brunei, but they, somehow or other the stars aligned and so on, so they met.
Yeah.
So they got married, and I was born. So my father was actually a government officer, starting from. We are originally from Kampong Sabah. My family is from Kampong Sabah. But my father was posted in Kuala Blight at that point in time.
Okay.
So I was actually born in Syria. And then after a few years, he was moved to Tutong. So I went to school in Tutong. Then before we actually built our house in Bandar. Then after that, he got posted as the district officer in Temburong. So I also went to Temburong. So actually, I've actually lived in all 4 districts. So,
yeah, you actually did.
So I'm probably one of the few people who actually managed to do that. So I actually know what the districts were like when I was very, very young. And then, and also luckily for me, after I finished the equivalent of the PSR. In those days, it used to be called the PCE.
I lived through PCE.
Oh, you lived through
Yes.
PCE. Okay. So the PSR, and then I did well enough. So they sent me off to Singapore. So I spent my O level and my A level years in Singapore before I actually went to England. So I like I said, it's unusual for me. So I didn't really meet anybody. I didn't really know how Brunei was like when I was growing up, simply because I was not here.
Yeah.
So I even missed the independence. I went to England in 1983 with a British passport, and then things sometimes in January or February 1984, I got called to the embassy, to the High Commission, and said you must change your passport. So yeah, so when they with all the change all the passport and so on. So in 1993 in October, I went to England with a British passport. I
Oh
came
my
back with a
god.
Brunei
Oh
passport.
my
You know,
god.
so like I said okay, yeah.
Wow.
So
Only during those times can that happen.
yes, yes.
Nowadays, no.
Yeah, yeah. So we were all carrying British passports then because we were the British. Technically, Brunei was a British protectorate state.
Yes,
Yeah. So
yes.
came back after a few more years of studying. In 1937, I came back, started my work.
Mm.
Uh, those were the days when ministry was still being formed,
Okay.
so everything was quite fluid at that point in time. So
Mm.
you learn a lot.
Mm.
But then around 1992, I was called up, and Brunei was starting the Tabung Amanah Pekerja then. So yeah,
Yes.
so me and one very senior officer who became the director, the two of us actually started up. Start from scratch, from ground zero. So
Oh.
I actually work in CPF, the Central Provident Fund in Singapore for a while, and also the Employees Provident Fund in Malaysia.
Mm.
So to see how it was done there, and then we brought it back here. So those were the early days, but it wasn't until about I didn't get into social media because a lot of people forget that computers were not always around. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so in 19 when I first started work, 87, 88, I brought my own PC to the office, and it was like a novelty because
Yeah.
PCs were fairly new at that point in time, and nobody was using them. No, you go to government offices at that point in time. We had this what we call the word processor, so most secretaries would be using them, but a lot of government departments will still have what we call a typing pool,
Mm-hmm.
where clerks will be sitting, in a room with 30, 40 people of them will be sitting there, all using a typewriter, all manually type. And then
Oh.
everything goes to there. So there was actually a typing pool was actually a typing pool because everything which needs to be typed goes there. Yeah, so and they
Oh.
would type it in triplicate.
Triplicate.
Triplicate means there'll be the original copy, there'll
Uh-huh.
be a carbon paper in between,
Ah,
and
okay.
then another paper.
Yeah, and then so
So
that
yeah, so
Sanang
yeah,
to
so that they get three copies at the same time while just typing it once.
mm.
The problem with that is that if they make a mistake, or if you change your mind and say, okay, I need to change this paragraph,
Yeah.
so it has to be retyped. so so
Oh my god.
there was no memory, there was nothing. So
Yeah.
basically, so all they do the whole day for people who are in the typing pool, the clerks, that's all they do. They just type.
Oh my god. That
Yeah,
is a fascinating era to be
yeah,
in,
yeah. So it was interesting
right?
because so PCs were just starting, and then I think slowly the typewriters were being replaced with what we call word processors.
Mm.
The word processors in those days, I still remember that they were computer based, but they were more focused. You just focused towards one task, which was the same thing as typewriting, but their printer was. Oh my God! I could still remember the printer. They were using a type of printer which is very very loud because it really literally hit that. So they would have to have a soundproof box for that printer.
Oh
So
my
so
god.
when they first started, so the first thing they do, they load up the paper and everything,
Mm.
close it,
Yeah.
and then you can still hear it. You can hear da, 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 da,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But if without that soundproof box, it was going to be even worse.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Didn't they used to also have, because I'm trying to remember now that you're
yeah.
telling me all these stories, right? I'm starting to have flashbacks of how, like, I remember maybe going to my late stepdad's
Yeah.
office. Macam there is a dedicated room for printing
Yeah.
because they were noisy or something, right? Like a closed door.
Yeah, everything was
Yeah.
everything was noisy in those days.
Yeah, typing. Ta, 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 ta,
So
ta, ta, ta.
yeah, nothing was really really quiet. So
Mm.
those were the days, and I remembered when I first started work, 1997. I was at the civil service department,
Mhm.
and at one point in time, and somebody called out and said, "Come, come, come," and all of the officers came out of the office, and we went over to the director general's office.
Mm.
I said, "What's happening here?" And everybody was looking at this machine. Oh, I said, "Wow!" I said, "It's a fax machine."
Oh my
And
god.
and we don't even use faxes anymore. But
Yeah.
but back in 1997, it was like such a novelty. We were all talking about, oh wow, now we can send documents. We can receive It was like okay.
Prior to that, it was post.
Prior to it was post. I mean, nothing gets sent electronically. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want something to be sent, say, from Singapore to here, you wait for the post to come.
Oh my
You know,
God.
so the fax machine was like a technology breakthrough for us at that point in time. So so it was in those era that I was in. So computers, like I said, were not normal. So it was even the time when we started up Tab. Computer was still not as accessible as it is
Yes.
today. And when you think the amount of data that we need to put in,
Yes.
um, but it wasn't until, but of course, as time progresses and so on, but it was around 1990. I remember it was 1995 when email started. So,
Okay.
so email was 1994. Well, I mean, there were a lot of technology in between, but before it became sort of critical mass was about nineteen
Yeah.
ninety five. Because I remembered when I was doing my master at Harvard. Uh,
Wow.
we not many of us own computers at them, so we were all relying on what we call the computer lab.
Computer lab. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yes.
yes. So
In schools. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So we had computer labs, and it wasn't just us. It was also the Americans and the Europeans who were studying in that school. So I was watching one of this American lady. She was trying to move her mouse, and she was doing it like, because,
Pakikot, and then,
because she moved it too fast, and
oh,
she didn't know how to control it.
so she tried to
So
like
she
slowly.
tried. So I was thinking to myself, okay, these are Americans. They're not as
Hello, gaming.
yeah,
Wow.
so they were not as smart as me. So I said, and there was a time when I remembered we received this email, and I was and the email arrived. There was no content. And apparently, what she did sorry, it's a she. Both are she's.
Okay. Okay.
Not that I'm trying to imply anything,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah. No. 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 Yes.
but
Yes.
but what happened was she wrote the entire email in the subject box. So
Oh my
so
God, that is so funny.
so, so I was looking and said, okay, this email is empty. So what is she doing? And it
all
was
the
all in the
subject.
subject. So you really literally had to read the subject box
Yeah.
because that was where the content
Oh
was.
my, and there was no character limit back then
Yeah,
for subject.
yeah,
Oh my
surprisingly,
God,
yeah.
yeah.
So this was back in the 19, I mean, the whole world was changing. So it
Oh
wasn't
my
just us,
God,
So,
yeah.
so
Everyone had to adapt to this
yeah,
new
so that was
technological
the time.
advancement.
So that was 1980s. Sorry, that was the 1990s when email first started and so on and so on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so even mobile phones were just starting.
Nokia
Uh,
or
the popular brand in those days was Siemens and Philips.
Siemens.
Siemens,
Yes.
Philips, before Nokia came in.
Yeah.
So and and I don't know whether people remember. I think in the Nokia phones you only allowed 6 text
Oh
messages.
my God.
So that means,
You have to delete
yeah.
new messages,
Oh
old
no,
messages.
they just disappear.
They just, oh my God,
so
yes.
so it's not like today where you can
You have
literally,
limitless.
yeah.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God,
yeah,
yeah.
6 text messages, and the
Mm.
messages were not long. So and in those days when you wanted your phone, for the sound ring and so on, you literally have to key them in one by one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but that's what it is. But
Yeah.
technology, I think in some sense sort of helped me along. So by about 2004,
Mm-hmm.
I did my executive development program at UBD.
Okay.
And in those days, I think we we're all already carrying our pen drives
Oh
and so on. So,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
how much technology has
Yeah.
evolved. But what was difficult was that there was 30 of us, and everyone wanted the same PowerPoint,
Okay.
from our lecturers. And so I told them, I said, no, no, no. I said, let me get it. I'll put it up on a website, and it's for you to download. So those were the days. So I
Yeah.
started my medium in practically anything that I could find. Whatever was going on, I was on it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I probably was one of those
Oh.
few people who was fascinated by technology to
Yeah, and
really.
not scared by it
Yeah,
instead.
so
Okay.
so if you were talking about Friendster, I was on it. If you're talking about MySpace, I was on it. So I was
Interesting.
practically in every one of these things. But
Yeah.
the only thing I wasn't in was MRIC.
Am I right? Okay, yeah.
So that's one of the communication tools. That apparently happened during the time when I was in US, and it
Ah.
wasn't popular there, for some
Oh.
reason. it wasn't popular where I was from, but
Mm.
that's the only one. That's the only technology I missed out because I wasn't on it. But everything else I was on it. So
Mm.
I put up all the PowerPoints and so on, and I just realized I said, oh, this is an interesting place to be in.
Yeah.
So I set it up. I started a website. I don't know whether you know it. It's
Mhm.
bruneiresourcesdotcom.
Oh, maybe
So
not.
no, but
Do you guys
you
know Brunei
yeah,
Resource? Okay.
bruneiresourcesdotcom apparently was popular among students who were studying abroad. Simply
Ah.
because what I did with bruneiresources.com was that whatever information I could find, I would put
Mm.
it up there. So
Like Brunei related.
that Brunei related. So
Okay.
that means if I attend a conference on Brunei, so I would I would at night actually scan the whole document in and uploaded it. So and of course in those days the government doesn't have its own website and
Yeah.
so on. So when we're a student from outside, when you're a
Mm.
student in say in England or in Australia and said yeah.
Yeah.
So but one of the fascinating thing that I found was that I actually uploaded quite a number of CDs,
CDs.
music CDs,
Okay.
especially related to patriotic songs, especially
Oh.
related to but you're not part of the music scene.
Mm.
So I would get quite a number of musicians who would come up to say, "Oh, thank you for uploading those Brunei songs
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
thing." So that's how they started. So
Oh.
yeah, I mean that was back in 2005. This is almost 18 years now. So it's
Oh
still
my
running.
God.
I
Yeah.
haven't updated it though, but
Yeah.
all the things are still there.
Is bruneiresources.com still
Yeah, it's
around?
still functioning. So
Okay.
you can still go there, and it's not as well. I wrote it by hand. The codes I wrote. I wrote all the codes, even the HTML codes and so on. So
Oh
it
my
wasn't
God.
done through. Wasn't done through. Today you can just easily.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
There's a template
you
you just
can
fill in
yeah.
saja.
So
Hmm.
1 second you have it up
Yeah.
and running. In those days, I was actually literally typing it by hand.
Yeah.
So, but that's what it is. But I
I'm
enjoy that.
curious, like, what is the main driving force for you to want to put in all this work and to put it
Uh,
out there and share with
I
people?
I've never really sort of thought of why. It's always been my fascination that information should always be available.
Mm-hmm.
So and because I'm always curious about it myself. So
Okay.
I searched for it. I couldn't find it. So
Mm,
I'm sure I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure there are others who would love to see what I found.
yeah.
So in fact, that's probably the only reason. I mean, nothing more
Mm,
than trying to share information.
yeah.
So, but of course, you have to be very careful. I mean, I work in the government, so
Yeah.
I do come across information which shouldn't be available to the public.
Okay.
And I don't do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all the information you'll see there are actually meant for the public. So
Mm,
yeah, but so that's what started. I think bruneiresources.com. Then eventually, I did quite a number of blogs in very various different platforms.
yeah.
Before I actually eventually moved finally to blogspot.com.
Okay.
So the bruneiresources.blogspot.com became sort of it started. What the funny thing was, bruneiresources.blogspot.com was actually meant to tell people I posted something on bruneiresources.com. So
Ah,
it wasn't meant to be.
like
But
a main site. It was
yeah,
supposed to drive
yeah.
people.
So but eventually I found it was much easier to just post it on
Put
the blogspot rather than trying to. So that's when sort of bruneiresources.com slowly died from my perspective. So
ah.
I focused very much on the blogspot. So there's a lot of it's what I do actually. It's what drives GL and so on. So
Mm,
actually, I would find a topic for the day. I mean, that's what blogs were all about.
yeah.
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 So I find a topic for the day and then just post what my thoughts are and so on and so on.
Mm,
And then suddenly people will, for whatever reason, I mean, we never advertise all these things.
yeah.
People
Yeah.
just come. So my topics were quite, I would say, if you read them, they were quite not controversial, but topics which people may want to think about.
Okay.
I was anonymous in those days because by then I was already the deputy permanent secretary at the Ministry of Finance. So I couldn't
Oh.
really sort of reveal myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way I write, the topics I know, people sort of we know who you are,
Oh,
that
really?
kind of
They
thing. Yeah,
figured it out?
yeah. I think one of the biggest mistake I made was when one of the postings I did was actually I took a photo of you know when you get to attend all these functions
Oh
at the
yes,
palace and so on.
yes.
I took a photo of it just to show what the whole place looked like. I forgot that my name tag was there.
Oh,
So okay, so I mean, it doesn't really matter. But what happened is that in those days, there were really no places for people to go to to talk about all these things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
whenever I post an interesting topic, you get like hundreds of people commenting on it. Which I was thinking, say, okay, the number is growing.
Yeah.
At its height, I think I was getting like 3,000-4,000 visitors a day.
Wow.
So and they're all commenting, and some of them were talking to each other,
Yeah,
even
yeah. Discussing in
yeah.
the
So
comment section.
that was the days. I mean,
Yeah.
that
Did that
was
ever get you into trouble? The fact that you kind
no.
of
Never really. I mean, all this while, never really, because I think in some sense I do a lot of self censoring. So
okay.
so I do know what topics should be out there, and what topics
Ah,
shouldn't be out there.
mm,
So I do avoid controversial ones,
yes.
but I like the ones which make society things.
Yeah, yeah.
So things like how old should you be when you get married, that kind of thing.
Mm,
So those are the questions which drives the society. So
yes,
it's not so
yes.
much about which political party are you interested.
Yeah.
I don't go there. Maybe this, but yeah, but the kind of questions that gets there. So I ran that for about. It's still running now. I mean, I just stopped posting on it
Mm,
until around 2005, 2006, I think.
okay.
And I get a call from whoever was running Mohiba at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
for the magazine for RBA, and said, can you do a feature for us?
Mm.
So I wrote for them.
Is it Mohibah ka?
Yeah, sorry, it's
Yes,
Mohiba. Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, forgot about the name. Yeah, so it was Mohiba, and I said okay. So and I got a nice check out of it. That's when I realized. I
Oh.
said, okay, this can be lucrative.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wasn't interested in. I never was interested in money anyway. So
Yeah,
in that
because you
sense,
already had a stable
yeah.
job.
So yeah, you're right.
Kan?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
So
just a side thing.
yeah.
Do
So
you
so
remember how much was this lucrative?
it was $800 for an
Okay.
article, which I thought was wow.
Yeah, yeah, right? That's
So
actually not a decent amount.
yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is. I mean, and after that, I got a call from Brunei Times. Brunei Times was just starting at that point in time, and they
Okay.
said, can you do a column for us? A
Mm.
weekly column talking about culture, talking about history, and so on.
Mm.
So I said, yeah, okay. I said, so you get paid for that as well. I did the Brunei Times column from about 2007 until the day it closed down. So I
Ah,
was doing an article. I was supposed to be doing an article a week, but
yeah.
there were, of course, obviously I was busy by then, so I couldn't really do it. But I did about 300 over articles. So those were the days. So talking about, so instead of just trying to, I was still giving out information, but now my information is written in a properly curated form. Where
Yeah.
it was published, where it was printed, and so on.
Did you have like was there an editor to help you with it as well?
In
Like a sub editor?
Brunei Times first started. When Brunei Times started, they had a number of people from malaysiakini.com.
Okay. Oh.
Malaysiakini.com those days. So I remember there was a young lady editor, experienced young,
Mm.
and when I first wrote my article, she gave it back to me and said, "No, I can't accept this." And I said, "Because you're writing for the public.
Okay.
If you can't capture them within that first paragraph, this article's dead." So I learned to write it from that perspective.
Yeah.
So that you get an article which is catchy, which
Yes.
is going to catch the people's eye.
Mm.
So when I first started, they sort of gave me like 2 columns, but eventually I think by the fifth or
Expanded.
sixth year I got the whole page to myself. So
Wow.
so that's the kind of thing that. So my
Yeah.
article started with about from 600 to 800 words, because they never really want you to write long articles. But by the time I was sort of fairly well known, so I was doing 1,005, 1,006 per article.
Wow.
The only problem was that, of course, my career also progressed. By 2008, I was the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Development, and then eventually Culture and Prime Minister's Office.
Mm.
Your work gets busier, but you've
Yes.
got this thing which you still have to constantly write. So it
Yeah.
wasn't as easy trying to get all these things out of the way. So I wasn't as active anymore on Blogspot simply because I was just too busy. Not that because I did the same thing with what I do to Angel. I had to say a goodbye post at one
Yes.
stage,
Okay.
So a few people, for whatever reason, they missed it and said, okay, I said, maybe I'll appear again. By then, we have come to today's world. We've got the IGs and so on.
Yeah.
So my IG again has always been, I've never really wanted to start anything with for a reason. I just did my IG because, okay, everybody's out there. Let's be out there as well.
Yeah.
Let's post about things that I
Yeah. And
have.
you've
And
always
so,
been one to catch
yeah,
whatever is
so yeah,
new.
so what happened was that my IG wasn't getting that much attention. I mean, there were people joining it and so on and so on. So I mean, the information I did was basically a rehash of what I used to write, but now it's in pictorial form.
Yeah.
So instead of just writing about it, you have to find a picture for it. So
Yes.
people find that interesting. But we had COVID in 2019, 2020, and a few people started to use, because what I did was, you could, in IG we use direct messaging, so people would DM me and said, so I would sort of post it up on my story, this is the complaint I received, this is, so people were suddenly using it as a place for them to, the Malay word is curhat.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have this problem, I have this thing, oh no, why is my office not like this? And so
Yeah.
I post them up. So again, it wasn't anything to. I'm just in some sense. When people write to you, when people DM you, it's not you that they wanted to write. They wanted the whole world to know. I've
What
got a
they're going through
problem.
and stuff. Yeah.
Please, just let it be out there, so that somebody can think about it. So it again, the same thing which I did for my blogspot. It sort
Yeah.
of became popular.
Yes.
So I think at its height, when we had all the lockdowns and everything, I remembered the numbers. I checked the numbers. It was about 11 to 12,000 people a day,
Oh
which
my
was going through this.
God.
I was thinking to myself, I said, we must all be bought,
Yeah.
to go through. Oh, we are in trouble or whatever it is. So it was popular. It was, it was quite worrying also in that sense that, we've got all these people with all these problems and nobody's looking out for
True.
them.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I wasn't in the position to look out, but I was, um, over the years. So what happened was that, I retired in 2017.
Okay.
And then when I retired, I started to, I actually did my PhD. I started to do my PhD. But when I was sitting down at the university and I was enjoying myself, reading all these books and so on, I was being approached by, some of the faculties and said, can you help teach?
Oh.
So, I said, okay, 30 years of experience. I said, why not? So I help teach. So I also get to teach the master students, where quite a number of them are actually government officers. I also get to teach the executive development program. So I actually taught at UBD and actually taught at UNISA.
Yeah.
So for both so you get to know a lot of these younger officers.
Yes,
most of
yes.
the people I work with have already retired. So because I get to
Oh.
meet all these younger officers. So when I get all this sort of problems or whatever which people send to me, and I would, some of them I would say, oh, I said, these people who I used to teach would probably know what to do something with. So I would send it to them.
Ah, so they would
So
help you.
so yeah. So in that
Like,
sense, so it was good. It was good. Then of course COVID was over.
yeah.
And nothing happened. So again, we all go back to our normal life. I
Yes.
mean, COVID technically isn't over, but it
Yeah.
was basically,
We've adapted to
yeah,
it.
we adapted to it.
Yeah.
And then of course the NGL started. So
Okay.
the app started NGL. And I was thinking to myself, what is this NGL thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said,
Also,
okay.
before this, it was the question sticker.
It
Or
was a
people
question.
just.
Yeah, no, it was just before it was just properly DM. It was direct DM.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the question sticker didn't come out. I mean, the question sticker
Unless
was
you put it
about,
out,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but people were actually DMing if you could use that
Oh.
as a verb, DMing me. Yeah. So I would get that. So you get a lot of these DMs coming. It was like, the same thing as NGL. Sometimes it was like hundreds a day. So I was like, okay, which one of this should I post? Which one of this should I not
Yeah.
post? And I decided early on is that it should all be anonymous. So, so you post to me, I would know who you are, but I don't really care who you are in that
Yes.
sense. I
Yeah.
don't really want to know who you are. But sometimes there are posts, there are, some of the posts which I receive or some of the texts which I receive are sometimes too sad to ignore. So I would reach out to them and say, what's going on? Is there anything I could help you with? That kind of thing. But those are rare. I mean, I don't try to get involved in personal
True.
things, but of course, sometimes when the texts do reach you in that stage and you're wondering, okay, this is no longer just wanting to whirl for these people need help.
Yes.
So that kind of thing. So I do that. So that's over. So by the time the angel started, I just wanted the angel was like, I wanted people to ask me questions like, okay, what's the history of this thing? What's the history of that thing? I wasn't thinking about, I have a problem with my husband. That was never ever in my mind. I was like, but the early questions were like that. But eventually, I think the questions became too personalized.
Personal. Yeah.
And then, of course, that's I mean, all this thing eventually will come up to I have a problem. Please help me. So, and I tried in the early days. I think I tried to answer every single one of them. But of course, the problem with that is that I just don't have the time because what happened was I remembered when it sort of hit. I call it the critical mass. I was getting hundreds a day.
Yeah.
Hundreds of questions a day. So it was just like, I said, there's no way I can answer all of this. I don't have that much time,
Yeah, it's like a full-time
Yeah,
job.
yeah. So, and the reason why I did that also was because my wife passed away in mid in June last year. So Angel started just soon after that. So it's
Wait,
like,
just June last year?
yeah, it was just a year,
That's so
so yeah,
recent.
about 14 months ago. Yes, but so I was like trying to figure out, okay, what should I do with my life in that sense? So sort of to fill it up and so on. But I eventually found that some of the early questions were talking about me, so I would sort of respond on a more personal basis of how are you and so on, how are you
That's
coping?
nice,
Yeah,
actually. Yeah.
So which was good, I found, but eventually over time, the questions became harder. It was no longer about what Brunei was like. I mean, there were very few questions like that. In fact, I read a few days ago when I closed down my NGL. So I was going through Reddit. I mean, there's a whole section about me on Reddit, which I didn't realize. But
Oh.
actually, someone actually sent it to me and said, "You should read this." And I said, "Okay." So I read the comments. One of the comments which I found interesting was that uh, the angel was interesting, but the problem was there were there were a lot of I would say there were a lot of text in between before you can get to the information that you want.
Okay.
Simply because there's no way of controlling angel in the sense that if you go to Reddit is fun because you could subtopic here, so you could
Yes.
actually
Oh,
make
yeah.
out that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that on my angel, so it was like answering 10 questions about how to find your wife or your husband, then somebody would ask, what is the origin of this place? So you would get, and then something else would come up. So it wasn't easy. I mean, I quite admire people who actually tried to read all those texts in between. But my feeling was that you were just scrolling through, So again, like at the height of it, it was like it wasn't as high as the one for COVID.
COVID, yes.
It's only about, I think the height of it about 6,000, 700,000 people a day.
Oh my
I mean,
god.
for a lot of people, that's a huge number.
That
But
is a
yeah,
lot.
so people said that I say only 6,000 because I'm comparing to what I had before.
Only-
So yeah.
Okay, listen, to compare, when I did my Q&A,
Yeah.
I only got 50 questions. You got like 6,000. And even then, I was struggling. It was so hard for me to answer each and every question.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in your position.
Yeah, so and I was only doing it at night, so before I go to sleep and so yeah, so it was interesting. It was interesting, but the problem is the complaints start to get more personal in the sense that we were talking about certain people.
Yeah.
So I would have to stop. So where even though it's anonymous, I know it's anonymous. And also they don't mention who it is, but to the point that if I put it out there, you could actually identify who that person is. So I would have to. I draw the line at that. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's a person you can identify, I said no, I'm not going to post this.
Yep.
But sometimes some of the complaints were sort of very serious. And even though I can't post it, I still have friends, in the enforcement agencies and so. I just screenshot it. I said,
Tulong
take a look at this.
investigate.
Yeah, what's going on? So I
Can you
don't.
share with us what examples of these
No, it's always accusations of bribery and stuff
in
like
the
that.
workplace, in the government?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I would send that. I could actually find. I mean, Angel, you're allowed to if you're willing to pay for it. But I never bothered, so I just stopped it at that. I said it's anonymous. It's anonymous. They give it to me in sort of in confidence. And that's what it should remain. But it is. There were quite a number of people. I think people were using it because they couldn't get through to their own organization, so they get it through me. And also, I think in a way, sometimes I sort of help to continue it, simply because some government agencies actually responded. So I would put actually the responses
On that,
on
yeah,
that page.
whatever they said.
Yeah, so I just post it and screenshot and pass it there. So in that sense, people are just saying, "Oh, okay, he gets responses." I complain direct, I don't get a response. So that sort of continues the whole thing. So,
But you know what's interesting? That's saying a lot already. Like individual complaints are ignored, but when it's put on a public platform, it suddenly gets acknowledged.
yeah,
So
I'm not gonna go through.
I know, but that
But
alone says a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What happened is that sometimes I was in government for 30 over years.
Yeah.
Sometimes responding to public complaints is not very easy, and in some sense also because a lot of it takes time.
Yeah.
So if you ask me about this, then I would have to ask someone to investigate and so on. So in my particular context was because it was posted public, so somebody sort of had to get the decisions out there, and then
Damage
so
control.
yeah, because that's what happened.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my intention. It never was my intention
Yeah, of
to
course,
actually go
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
My intention, like I said, was always to put information out.
Yeah. Because what's in it for you anyway,
Yeah,
right?
so so the only problem is that when you start to put out public complaints, there will be people who will be affected. So and I nobody actually complained direct to me in the sense that you shouldn't do that, or shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But I get I have my ears pretty much to the ground.
Yes.
And there were people, one of my former officers who said, I don't think those people at that particular department is happy with you. I said, yeah. So I said, yeah, I understand, and of course, I work in quite a number of government agencies. So some of them actually are departments which I used to work for and so on.
Yeah.
And one or two would grab to me and said, "You used to be here," so that kind of thing.
So saying like, then why are you
Yeah.
saying
So
this or
yeah.
like
So
helping
I
these
said,
people?
yeah. I mean, we had problems then, but the problems shouldn't persist and so on. But yeah, you're helping the mass, but you're also ruffling some feathers in between. So you have to be very, very careful. And over those months, I think you get certain feedback which probably negative. You get a DM which says, "Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this because of whatever, whatever." I said, okay, I would love to respond to those people. I just don't want to put it up in public.
Yeah.
But my sense was, if you get negative comments, you say, many of us who actually go through all these things about information and so on, we don't bother to comment. But the fact that someone actually bothered to comment and give you a negative response means there's something serious out there.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was starting to slowly get them. I mean, I wasn't bothered by critics. I mean, I've always done my own things. I mean, that's how I'm here. If I've been listening to many people, I wouldn't even be here.
Exactly.
But But of course, eventually over time, we're just starting to say, okay, I mean, it was getting tiring. And what was harder was that NGL started to limit the number of posts that you could keep.
I think you just reached the threshold.
Yeah, no, yeah. What happened was that they only allowed. I think at one point in time where I suddenly lost hundreds of texts which I have not replied to,
Oh.
they just kept it to 100. So if you really notice now, NG only keeps up to 100 texts.
Okay, okay.
Unless you're in the paid mode, I guess,
Maybe,
yeah, so
okay.
it's 100 texts. So was getting more than 100 texts a day. So
Yeah.
so a lot of these texts were just suddenly
Hilang,
disappearing, yeah,
yeah.
because, I didn't have time to respond to them.
Mm.
So that was another reason that, in that sense, I said, I'm sorry. So some people who don't get the reply, so will keep on reposting their text. And that sort of, again, I get the same text 10 times. So that's 10 text loss of
Yeah,
other people. So
yeah.
there is that kind of thing. So Angel wasn't helping. I was getting all these negative messages and so on. I wasn't really, I never really thought of stopping actually. I never really thought about it until sort of, you get that final one that says, you have not been fact checking, you have not been, and suddenly I said to myself,
Oh
you
no.
don't realize how much work I've put into all these things. The amount of people you have to text to get the right information. And so, of course, there are times when I do make mistakes. Obviously, we're all there. We make mistakes, but it was never intentional. But to be accused of something like that, and I said, okay, maybe it's time to stop it. Maybe it's time to take a rest or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Take a respite. So this is where we are today. So it's not so
Mm.
much about people. I saw some people speculating in Reddit whether the authorities have something. They said no, it's not. The authorities have nothing to do with it. I mean, I know certain agencies do gripe about me. Certain people, who happen to be in the wrong end and so on. But never ever there was never ever a pressure in that sense. So,
Okay.
people were just sort of happy to let me do whatever it is because it's also a release valve in some sense for a lot of people. All the frustrations,
Yeah.
all the problems people are having, and so on.
Mm.
And they couldn't just. It's not easy actually in some sense if you don't know enough people. It's not easy to get your complaints across.
True.
So you may write, and then you don't even know what happened to them. So my angel sort of became that. But again, I just, with all these things, I mean, I started for no reason. So I just stopped for exactly probably no reason.
Yeah.
But what I found that when I stopped, you know, quite a number of people were still asking me questions on NGL. So I stopped, I didn't respond.
Mm.
But I felt a sense of pity in the sense that there's still people who need help out there.
Yeah.
So I opened up a tiny little one at one of my. I've got about 5 or 6 IGs.
Oh,
So
you
yeah,
you have 5 or 6
I
IGs.
have 5 or 6 IGs. They all belong. They all do different things. But
Oh,
this particular one was one of my religious focus IG.
okay.
It's called Laluan Jannah.
Ah, okay.
So I actually opened up a question box there.
Mm.
So I don't get that many as I used to. I probably get about 3 or 4 a day at most. But those people who know it,
Yes.
so they go there.
Oh my God.
So that focused very much on family matters, which I thought was needed. So I really really had to open that up again. So I remember the interesting question. What 2 nights ago was somebody asking about if a person at talak satu with his wife, how come he's can he go back to the wife? That kind of question.
Yeah.
I say, yeah, yes, of course. So I get questions like that. But the more difficult questions I'm getting now is like there was this. I'm assuming it's a lady. My boyfriend is a foreigner. So how do I talk to my parents about it? That kind of questions.
My partner is what?
My boyfriend is a foreigner.
A foreigner. And how
So
do
yeah,
oh,
how is she going to approach her parents about it? So
aduh.
that's the kind of questions I get,
Yeah.
which I thought is not more fun to handle, but actually more close to what the problems are. I mean, people still use that to ask other questions, which I don't answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes,
You have
yet,
to draw that
yeah.
line.
So
Yeah. Set a
I
boundary.
focus very much on family matters and so
Mm.
on. So which I thought was needed. So there is an not an NGL anymore. It's just a question box. So I do know who you are, and so so, but it makes it easy. But one of the questions which I thought was very sad was about I'm assuming is a boy or a girl in a family where the family was very very strict,
Strict.
very strict.
Okay.
He was saying all these things, and then the question was, is this normal? So so I haven't answered that question yet, but those questions sort of moved me. How do we help these people? How do we help these people who are having problems like this? And this is I guess in some sense I don't think I'll keep the NGL close. I mean, there are people out there that need help.
Need help, yeah.
So at the moment I'm doing it through Laluan Jannah IG. I don't know whether I will ever want to go back to being at Brunei Heritage. But now what I do is with the Brunei Heritage, I focus back on my postings, which I didn't really do that much when I was focused on my stories. But
Yeah.
now my postings go back to what I used to do best, photos, information, and so on about Brunei. So this is where we are.
Wow.
This is why we're sitting here now.
That is insane. That is, you are truly a historian, and you are full of history yourself.
Yeah, interestingly, because we don't really know how I've never really sort of I didn't choose my parents, obviously. I didn't choose the way I choose to live. But over time you get to do a lot of things. I probably was I guess it depends on how you want to do your life. One of the things I think I went for this Ship for Southeast Asian Youth Program, popularly known as Kapal Belia. I was about 27, I think. I was probably one of the older participants. But being the youth leader allowed you to do a lot of things. So it allows you to understand what Brunei was all about and so on. And also actually opens up an opportunity because I couldn't dance, I couldn't sing, I couldn't do all those things. So I became the narrator or the MC,
Okay.
And when we did our show locally, one of the RTB people actually approached me and said, "Do you want to come to RTB and do a voice test?" And I said, "Okay." I said, "For what?" Just do a voice test. So I went to RTB, I did a voice test, and apparently I passed it. And it was to be a newsreader.
Yeah.
So
You do have that voice. I can hear it.
yeah, but so what happened was, so once the approved you as a part-time news, it wasn't highly paid though. It was only about $20 per session. I mean, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in for the money. But I thought, wow, this is interesting, being in. But what I realized was the what I could get out of it, because what happened was that you had to do voice training, so they actually tell you how to do voices and so on, So then of course after that you go on the news. I did that for about 3 or 4 years. I was actually on the radio. The time wasn't fun. I think the news reading at that the morning stage was about 6:15 in the morning.
Okay.
Afternoon was about 12:30. And at that time, the top office, I was in top at that point. The top office was in the current BIBD building,
Bandar.
the Bandar,
Okay.
and then the studio was across the RTB studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I had to do the 12:30, I had to run literally from because the problem to have 12:30 news is that 11:45 and even at 12 o'clock they're still there typing it. So and
because it is fresh news.
it is yeah. So and again, like I said, it wasn't the technology of today. Today you can just get they got iPads now.
Yes.
In those days, literally you had to get the paper. And there have been times when I waited at the newsroom for about 12:15 and then rushed down to the studio.
Oh my
So studio, so it was interesting time. And I was supposed to go on television. I was supposed to do the TV news, but by then I was the deputy at the top, and my wife was saying that, "Are you really sure you have the time to do all this?"
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, yeah, maybe I'll just stop here. So I stopped. But what was useful about the voice training and so on, so when you become more senior, when I became a director, when I become deputy permanent secretary and so on, you had to give a lot of speeches. So those help actually. The
Yeah.
training that I had helped. So I I wouldn't say I was one of the better ones, but I understood, how to give speeches.
Yes.
Simply because I was trained by RTB,
Yeah.
so that's something good which came out of that.
Similar to when you wrote articles for Brunei Times,
Yeah.
now you know how to get the reader's attention
Yeah.
by the first paragraph.
Yeah.
I love
So
that you
yeah,
learn and you implement it in your everyday life.
you learn all these things. This is what life is all about.
Yeah.
You never stop learning.
You never stop learning.
The only problem is that if you don't want to listen to the people who's teaching you, so life is always full of especially for me, it's just full of journeys. So I enjoyed my life. I don't regret ever losing anything, but yeah. But a lot of those things. I mean, like I spent a whole year when I did my masters at Harvard. I mean, that was like a whole year of different life, so you never really thought about it. In fact, that was even interesting because I never ever wanted to. I was, you never really want to apply to all these kind of places. You're just like, you just, is it even worth it to get there? So
Were you married already at this point?
I was married. What happened was that I was sort of in the middle of my career.
Okay.
And everybody was doing the masters then. Brunei government was generous, in giving out scholarships. Sorry, in service trainings. So I really didn't want to apply. So and then it was my wife who encouraged me. I think cuba saja niya, mana tahu niya. So I applied, and then I applied, and the director general called me up and said, I don't like the place that you are applying to, because I applied to my old university to do my masters.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to try all these other places. He gave me this Ivy League list of things. And
Wow.
I said, okay, okay, if you don't want me, So I applied. So I actually applied to Harvard, and then you have to write you have to write actually. They actually come and interview you. They actually send a person to Brunei to interview you.
Wow.
Yes, that's how serious they
Does
take
that
it.
still happen until today? Or no?
I don't know. But today they don't have to. I mean,
yeah, they can do
today,
Zoom calls.
yes,
Okay.
but in those days they actually came.
Wow.
So it came. I don't know. I must have impressed the interviewer.
Yeah.
Did all the whatever necessary things again. And then so the chief said, "You've been accepted." I was thinking to myself, "So, oh wow,
Wow.
I never even thought about actually going there in the first place. I never even thought I was going to be accepted." So so there you are. So,
you lived
I stayed in the Harvard actually is located in a city called Cambridge, which is just outside of Boston in Massachusetts. So
for a year, you
for a
stayed
whole
there.
year, I stayed there. My wife didn't come with me. She came during the holidays. So yeah, but it was an enjoyable time because you're going back, to being a student and so on, and I guess doing it at Harvard makes it different simply because the people the classes are scary because a lot of them are graded based on your performance in class, not exactly on your performance in exams. So that means for every class you have to do a lot of contribution. So this is where if you get to watch American movies where people actually put their hands up and so on. So this is what
exactly
happened.
like that.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. So you really literally have to, because if you don't, you can fail. So it's not so much whether you get an A for your exam. So if you don't participate in class, participation in class was essential. So you're really, really forced to come out and think about your class. Not just
just sit there.
yeah, not
and
just sit
absorb,
there. Yeah. So it's a different kind of environment. So it
That's
makes
very
you
interesting.
it makes you different in the sense that every class scares you. It's like, oh, okay, the next class. What are we going to be talking about? Did I read enough last night? Can I make a contribution to this? Is that kind of thing? Yeah.
Was it difficult for you? Because I know a lot of Bruneians aren't used to that kind of environment. We're
It
very
was.
shy
Yes.
in nature.
So what Harvard did was they actually understood that problem because
Okay.
we had a number of what they call them the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth. So we have this thing where where you're lectured to, you just sit down and listen. So they actually told us to come 2 months before the program started. So there's a whole bunch of us who came from these so-called mostly British countries. So we actually spent a whole month learning how to become an American student. So yeah,
Wow.
and
So that's
then
like sort of like the orientation.
yeah. So but it
Okay.
wasn't a short orientation; it was a
A
very long
month.
orientation. Yeah.
Wow.
So you're literally forced to put up your hands, so that you come up of your comfort zone.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and then we spent an extra month
Hmm.
studying with what they call mature students, people who have who have left school for a long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
we had 2 extra months just before the actual program started. So I've been so this is how it was a full year for me. But those
Mm.
were useful. I mean, American in that sense, the society was worried about discrimination and so on. So even for some of the classes which I took, the exam was we were given half an hour longer because we're not English speakers. So they
Oh.
gave us a half an hour.
So
So,
they're
so
considerate in that
yeah, yeah.
sense.
So I was like, okay. And some of my friends actually took advantage of it. I was looking at it. I said, you can speak English better
Oh,
than the
but
Americans. Just because you're not. Well, we got this half an hour. We're gonna take
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
Take
yeah,
advantage of the
yeah,
perks,
yeah.
right?
So that kind of thing. So it was interesting. The Harvard system was interesting because one of my friend was struggling. She brought 3 kids along with her, and she
Okay.
was looking after the kids, and she was also trying to. And then one day I saw someone was with her, and she said, "No, this is a tutor provided by Harvard.
Hmm.
So when they see you struggling, you're not doing well, they actually provide assistance to you." And
Oh
she had
my
she had someone who was
God.
sort of. I said, "Wow, I didn't realize the resources that they spend on doing this."
Yeah.
But I guess more because I think well, first I think they're trying to protect their reputation and
Reputation.
so on.
Yeah.
So they don't want people to fail. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So which I thought was an interesting concept because the American concept, which I don't quite honestly speaking. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I don't quite agree with some of the things they do.
Okay.
But I like the way they approach education. I
Yes.
like the
I
way they
actually
do this.
agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So and I loved it. I mean, even at the place where I was studying, we had this place called the Crying Corner.
Oh my
Yeah, so there was this garden. They put benches and so on because they know students come under pressure.
I don't know why
So
I'm
yeah,
laughing,
yeah,
but it's like the fact that there's a dedicated space.
yeah. So it was like saying, if you're gonna cry, go there. So
Yeah.
you might find people there who's willing to comfort you and so. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, I
They
never
really
yeah.
thought of it in every aspect
Yes.
in terms of like socially,
Yeah.
like and human
Yeah.
psychology, like to provide that space. So it's oh my God, I love
Yeah. So
that.
we don't have that here. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have that
We have
here.
a huge shame culture
Yeah. So
that's
this this
happening
this is
here.
what's worrying because I remember the first thing we had to do when we were at Harvard. It's not so much about we said, okay, we're gonna have a psychologist talking to you today. I
Yeah.
said, okay. So he was actually talking about what we were all facing. And I thought that was interesting because here we will say, okay, the library is over there, no, no, no. He said, we know we have a problem because you just arrived here. We know we are having a first time because, your
Mm,
family is not here, your children is not here, and all that kind of thing.
yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's what struck me about the American system of how compassionate some of the institutions are. I don't know whether
Mm,
it goes on for all institutions,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Harvard certainly did. So Harvard's not so much about an education for me in the sense of what I learned.
Mm,
In fact, I remembered we only allowed to do what we call 8 credits or 8 modules.
mm.
So that means basically you take 4 subjects in your first semester, 4 subjects in second semester. I
Ah.
took 6 in the first semester, and I
Okay.
registered for 5 in the second one. I had a general. They had somebody who would become your personal tutor, and she
Hmm.
called me up and said, "What are you doing?" I said, I came here to learn. But you did 6 credits already in your first module. You only need 2 in this
Yeah.
module. Why are you taking 5? I said,
Wow.
and your 6 were you getting A's. I mean, what were you trying to do? I said, I
Mm.
came here to learn. And then she told me, you know what she told me? She said, you should cancel all those. Just take the 2. spend the time, go to the museums, go to the, that's what she told me. And she said, it's not so much about education, it's not, there are other things for you to learn. And I was looking at her and I said, I mean, I came from this culture where you're like, you need all these things,
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I said, no, no.
Oh
So,
my
yeah.
God.
So, visit the
Shout out to her.
museums.
I love
Yeah,
her.
yeah. Visit the museums, she
Yeah.
said. I was like thinking, okay, this is, I remember, no, I don't remember her actually. She was a professor.
Mm.
She died already. But the way she says it, education is not just about attending classes. Education is about everything.
Yeah.
So this again, I don't learn. I don't remember what I learned actually in Harvard. I mean, I
Oh.
could go through all my notes and say it's
Yeah,
all there.
yeah, yeah.
But the things I learned are not the education. The
From
things
your
I learned, yeah,
experiences.
things I learned are things like this.
Yeah.
So we tend to focus so much about getting, PhDs, masters, and so on. Those eventually in today's world, they are useful, yes,
Yeah.
but they're not the end of it. I mean, you can get, you can go, places without it.
Mm.
But the most important thing is actually it's not about education. It's about how you bring yourself up. How do you bring yourself to do whatever you want to do.
Mm.
And that's a real life lesson that you need to learn.
Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. I want to take this chance to remind you to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Talking to your friends and family about IZZY Does It helps us reach new listeners who may enjoy the show as much as you do. And as you know, we recently launched our crowdfunding campaign to keep the show going, but this is entirely optional. Those who are willing and capable can transfer however much into the bank account in the description box below. And as usual, I want to thank you for your incredible support and hope you enjoy the show.
In today's world, I think we spoke about this before the recording. We talked about, people worrying about age and so on, because you have to reach a certain something by the certain age,
Yeah.
simply because the rules dictate you. So if you want to do your masters here in Brunei, you have to do it before the age of 30, because after the age of 30, you have to pay for the tuition fees and so on. So, there are certain age things which you need to do.
Yeah.
But we also look at age in the sense of, oh my God, some of the questions I get is, oh my God, I'm 30 plus, I'm not married yet. I said, why? Okay, probably the biological thing is there, lah. But generally I said, why? Why should we be pressured by time?
Yes.
Why should we be pressured by society? Why should we be pressured by all this? Live your life, enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed the best of my life. I'm 60 years old. I mean, I don't regret anything. If you don't do it, you don't do it.
Yeah.
So you really have to do all these things all by yourself. It's just a matter of you. It's just you versus you. It's not you versus people.
Yeah.
So this is what I keep saying. You versus you.
Mm.
I did my PhD, of course, obviously,
Yeah.
I teach at university. So even though I don't really have to do it, I did it. But mine partly was because my wife paid for it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So what happened was, when I first started to do my PhD, I just wanted to, they allow you to pay by installment. You
Okay, I didn't know that.
yeah, you can actually pay it per semester.
Mm.
And my wife was looking at me and said, if you're gonna do this, I have a feeling you might not want to finish it. Because I was going into it with the sense that, okay, if I can, if it's tough, I'll just stop it and I won't lose much.
Yeah.
And she said, how much is it? I said, it's $9,000. So the next day she gave me a check during breakfast. I said, this is my contribution. I will never be able to do my own PhD, but I want you to finish your PhD. So I went to university and paid it off. So yeah. So actually the PhD is hers in that sense, It
was a gift.
It was a gift. My wife is like that. See, she didn't finish her university either. But she's always on the lookout for all these things. So even when she had lung cancer before she died. So she was suffering for about 3 years. But in those 3 years, So she was staying at home. She couldn't do much because she had to rest.
Yeah.
So every now and then I would get a text from her and said, "Can you transfer this amount to It was always a charity of something. So she would be like, "You can transfer this money," So yeah, so she did that. I think the last big one she did was she actually contributed to a mosque somewhere. I don't know how much she paid. I never really asked her how much she actually. I know. So when she died, the people there texted me and said the whole mosque did the yasin and the tahlil for her lah. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
she was one of those things.
Mm.
Yeah, but like I said, life is always, it depends on how you live your life.
Yeah.
So age wise and so on. But the funny thing was, after she passed away, quite a number of people was asking me whether I should, whether I'm considering moving on and so on. I said, not really. I mean, the funny thing is, you're seen as now we talked about this. You're seen as single and available now. In that sense. So,
Yes.
so it's a different life. It's a different
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah.
in the early days of NGL, people was asking, do you want to go out to have coffee with me and so on. So
Ah.
eventually, I did.
Yeah.
I did do that.
You
I
actually
did.
said yes to that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did do that. So, but it's always with we were married for 31 years, so it's really hard to forget, what 31 years is like. It's
Mm.
always a comparison between, what would the next person would be like,
Yeah.
what she would have been, and so on.
Yeah.
But quite a number of people also advised me, said, don't compare because you can never get the same one. I said, okay, that sounds like a good advice. But it's 14 months now, so like I said, it's not easy. I beginning to enjoy my life as a single person.
Yeah.
Have go out to Sampurna Inak, shouldn't. Am I allowed to say certain
Yeah, you
restaurants?
can.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
I know in RTB News we don't say
Oh, no,
all
boleh
this
ha.
business.
Yeah, you can. You can. Yeah.
So Sampurna at 1 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So I wouldn't have been able to do that if I have a wife with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but then the downside to that, I wouldn't be doing that if I had a wife with me too. So so
Yes.
so it's one of those things. I you know
Rediscovering
yeah,
life.
you're describing life in that
Yeah.
sense. I actually, honestly, I did have someone sort of that I could talk to and so on. So
Okay.
it helps through your grief. So when you're grieving, it actually helps to have your family around. But I was lucky enough to find a friend
Who could console
who I
you.
could sort of talk to,
Yeah.
and she could talk to me.
Mm.
But yeah, so that helped in that
Yeah.
sense. So,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, I guess she moved on as well. So
Okay.
so that is enough. So in that sense, grieving is helped by having people around you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that sort of helped a lot. So
Mm.
so many of these things. So many of the questions that we have about life is more, I don't know, about the philosophy of life, I guess. And I guess one of the things which people also forget is that how old I am. You know,
Mm.
uh, so I said that at the very beginning, 60
Yeah.
years old. I'm really wondering what to do with it. So in
Yeah.
that sense, what else can I do? What else
Yeah.
is out there?
True.
But it's always been, how do I help people? How do I, you don't really need, at my age, I don't really need that much money. I mean, as long as I can do my living and so on, and so,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy where I am. I don't really, there's really nothing for you to buy. I go to the department store, I looked at things and said,
You don't need.
there's nothing that I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, there's nothing that I need. I mean,
Wow.
the only place I go to is supermarket. But
Mm.
now that I'm alone, basically, even supermarket is really like,
Mm.
so it's a different kind of life compared to what most people would,
Yeah.
I need new clothes or whatever. No,
Yeah.
I don't need one.
Yeah.
So really, really is trying to fill up your time. And then
True.
it's even worse now that I finished my PhD. So I at least, I go back to writing, I go back to running my own companies and so on. So that sort of help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
that
keep
sort
you
of
busy.
yeah, this all helps keep you busy.
Wow.
So it's the little things that really drives you now.
Mm.
But to find a big thing at the moment, I don't really know. I mean, I should, but I have not focused. I mean, a lot of things that you can actually do, but I don't have the energy to do them just yet. Probably give me about a year or so. Probably we find the energy to do a lot of other
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can just relax now first and enjoy
yeah.
yourself.
The only problem is that when you're all alone, relaxing is not easy.
True.
So it's always thinking about certain things.
Mm.
I don't watch movies. I don't do a lot of things which people find interesting. So
Okay.
that makes it harder. I mean, the only movies I watch probably would be on Netflix.
Mm.
But even then, you choose whatever you need to watch. So
Yeah.
anything else, I
Okay.
read. But my problem with reading is that you've read so many things. So sometimes when you come across a book and say, okay, looks interesting, then halfway through you realize this
It's
is
not.
just a rehash of something which I've read quite a long
Yeah.
time ago,
And I bet you
So
read so many
yeah,
books
so
already.
so it's like okay, that's it. No, that book's
Move
gone.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is one of the difficult things in life. Really nothing
Mm.
much. So now I get to do interesting things like some organizations would approach me. Can you sort of help us coach? Send you so I would do that, but again, it's not that many, but
Yeah.
enough to keep me going. Yeah, so
Mm.
you do get paid and everything. Yeah, extra
Mm.
money.
Yeah.
So at least there's something. My son is doing his masters at the moment in Teles University in KL.
Ah,
So
okay.
again, so you do need the funding to pay for his education, and
Mm.
so that's extra money helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Oh, what's your relationship with your son like?
Well, we only have him. So it's always been very, very close. So he would text me every day, "How are you? What's going on?" But
Mm.
I get, but he all gets updated through my WhatsApp stories anyway.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah.
He
So
checks
my
lah.
so my WhatsApp story and then so on. My mother actually does that. My mother is 80 years old.
Wow.
So and then sometimes. Her mate would ask my mate and say, what's happening? How come he's not posting? It's like, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
cute.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I usually post every day, but sometimes when I get too busy, so I'm too ill or whatever, that's when she asks.
Okay.
So I said, the two mates are asking. Then my mate would say, mam tanyanya kenapa
Another
yeah.
update. Oh,
So
aduh.
so my mom watches out for my WhatsApp stories. So my son watches
Yeah.
out for myself. So I do my WhatsApp stories more for the families around
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so
Because they're the ones who have your number.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're the ones. So quite a lot of people have my number actually.
Oh, ya
So
kak.
yeah. So my WhatsApp story get about like 200 viewers. Yeah. Too many people are watching it, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
Those are the ones with the blue ticks. The one
Oh.
with the gray ticks, like
Ah, yes.
the gray ticks don't show up on that number. Oh no,
Oh.
they don't. Your
Okay.
WhatsApp story is only. I mean, the number of viewers that you see on your WhatsApp story are only
Are
those
blue
people, the blue
ticks.
ticks. So
Okay.
the gray ticks actually watched it, but without you realizing it. I
Oh.
first came across it when someone who was not appearing in the blue tick asked me,
Mm.
yeah, what apa ni ya? And
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like thinking, how come you watching this?
Oh.
That's when I realized the grey ticks watched it as
Ah.
well. So I don't really know how many grey ticks are there.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, because
uh,
I'm not on WhatsApp stories, so that's very interesting to know.
yeah.
Mm.
WhatsApp story is good. I mean, it's like the angel. It's the 24-hour thing. After 24 hours, it disappears. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah,
It doesn't stay
it doesn't
there. It doesn't
stay.
stay there.
Yeah,
So even if you make a controversial comment, 24 hours it
hilang
will
it,
hilang.
and people
So
forget about it.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
life is
Wow.
fickle. Life is fickle. It's
Yeah.
like I said, when COVID happens, I had 12,000 views. I don't know where the 12,000 views are now.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're the same group
Mm.
that's doing my NGL at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, because you're
yeah,
constantly attracting new people
yeah,
based on the stories that you
yeah,
share. Do you remember, like, macam, when was it? Because right now I checked, you have about 45,000 followers.
yeah.
That's like more than a lot of the influencers we have now. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I don't really know how the number comes up.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
one day you open your IG and suddenly it's like past
yeah,
10K, past 20K, past
yeah.
30K.
But
How
it's
do you
not.
feel in that moment when you
I
experience that?
Well, it's not the first time. I mean, the Blogspot also did it.
Yeah.
So you just get a sense of responsibility. So
Mm-hmm.
you worry that there's 45,000 people now following you,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also safe in the sense that not all of them are following you at the same time.
True.
So again, probably be a bulk of about 20,000 or so.
Mm.
Yeah, but the question of responsibility comes into mind.
Mm.
So that means you have to make sure whatever you're posting is out there is, in the sense that you're like a museum director.
Mm-hmm.
We curate our
Content
information,
and
our content,
information.
and so we just make sure that the content is out there. But at the
Mm.
same time, you don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
You don't really want to, not that you're trying to keep them or track them or whatever, but you just don't want to disappoint the people who are already there.
Yeah.
So I try to make the content more interesting.
Mm.
The 45,000 are people who actually follow the postings.
Okay.
The people who follow the stories are different. So if
Mm-mm.
you check through because I'm mine is on business, IG.
Okay.
So they actually give you
The
more information, the
analytics. Oh
analytics and so on. So
yes,
I actually
yes.
see them.
Yeah, yeah.
So the people who follow me on my stories are actually different from the people who follow me on my postings. So that's the interesting bit.
Different demographics.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's some people who ask me questions, and I said it's in the posting.
Mm.
And they will say which one. So that means they never read the posting. They just came
Oh.
there just to watch the stories.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's why I
yeah.
said, so
Oh my
it's a
god.
different world. So I don't know the numbers for the posting. So sorry, numbers for the stories. That
Yeah,
would be a different number.
that's a different number.
Yeah.
Yeah. From all of the questions that you received on your NGL, what would you say is a common theme that you always receive?
It's hard to say because you see when a question comes up, when I go through the questions every day,
Mm.
there would be like, okay, in a sense you're like a reporter.
Yeah.
I say, okay, what's the theme for the day?
Yeah.
So you would set it up, and then suddenly a whole flurry of stories would come up to
Oh
that.
my god. Yeah.
So that means I remembered once we were talking about I can't remember what it was. Too many stories, but something which sort of triggered people off.
Mm.
And then you get like 100 texts just talking about that thing. Oh, it happens to me too. This is my
Oh, or
experiences.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
A
that kind of
reaction
thing. Yeah,
chain.
so
A chain
the
of
reaction
reaction.
chat. So that
Yeah.
would go on for like 2 or 3 days,
Ayo.
and actually it's up to me to stop it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes I would just say, okay, enough of this, lah, because I get people who are like, I remember when we were talking about teachers and so on. I remembered a non-teacher friend. I think you may want to switch that off now,
Yeah.
maybe focus on something else because certain occupations get more reactions than others,
Mm.
which I pity because I know, for instance, teachers are under pressure.
Yeah.
I know that there's always been. They are among probably the most common topic which I receive. I
Mm.
try not to post about them too much, because I not that I pity them in the sense that, but some of the institutions also have their own complaint page, so
Okay.
you could actually go there
Yeah.
and do it
Yeah.
yourself.
As in,
But
people are complaining about teachers, or teachers are complaining.
it's mostly about, I think, the amount of work which teachers have to do and so
Oh,
on.
I think
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
that's a lot. I don't know what. I'm not going to talk about
Okay,
with
okay.
which ministry and so on. But of course, obviously, but some certain occupations are prone to problems.
Heated discussions,
So yeah. So
debates. Yeah.
so to say if there is any one particular topic which is common, I would say there are many common topics which goes on in Brunei, and
Mm.
a lot of the time is more personal. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually pressure which people face in life.
Mm.
A lot of it is they just don't have a way to express themselves. So
Yeah,
so
because
yeah.
it's very interesting to me in a sense where, because I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, right? Like, you basically have an insight to how life truly is, unfiltered, uncensored
Yeah.
in Brunei. And you must feel such an immense pressure, because some of the things that are directed to you are the things that you're not able to help because of sensitivity
Yeah.
issues, or like it could get you in trouble, or it could get someone else in trouble. Like, so I want to say I understand how you feel, but I cannot. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And for you to also feel like you want to help, but you're unable to.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, it's actually, but one of the things which you actually find, is that people sometimes don't need help. What they just wanted to know was, I have a problem. I just want to share my problem, and that's where the pressure comes in, because when you live alone, or rather when you live with your family, sometimes you can even talk to, I've got texts. I can't even talk to my husband. My husband's not listening to me. If I raise this, it's going to be an argument, that kind of thing.
oh my
So
god,
and I guess I'm feeling that, who else can she talk to?
yeah,
And so she put it out on this NGL and say, I've got this problem, I've got this thing. She was not expecting an answer,
she
because
just
yeah,
wants.
she just wants to release it.
Okay.
So uh, when I look through the demographic, I've got actually more women viewers than men. I think it's about 56 to 44 or something like that. So
Mm,
so I'm seeing there's a lot more women out there who have issues. I don't blame them,
mm,
because I think in the way that our society, our culture works and so on. But
mm.
a lot of the time, I find that they just can't express themselves.
True.
And that's for the older one. For the
Yeah.
younger ones would be like students or young people who have problem with their parents and so
Oh,
on.
yeah.
So these are some of the people that you see who have problems, and really, really sometimes for the younger ones it's easier because they're asking for advices. What can I do? What should I
Mm,
do? And so
mm.
on. But for the older ones, it's so much. I'm not asking for help, but I just want you to know. And I wish my husband, in some sense, my feeling is that she's wishing her husband is reading that.
Yeah.
So it's always, you don't want to be cooped up. It's like a pressure cooker,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do about it. You just
Yeah.
need to boil.
Oh
You need you.
no.
It's a pity. It's a pity.
Yeah.
Seriously,
It's
I wish. Yeah,
unhealthy.
it's unhealthy too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So seriously, sometimes I wish I could just go out there and let's give you a hug.
Oh.
That's all they need. Sometimes they just need somebody to sort of. And in that sense, I fulfill that role simply because they see me as an older person. You know. Most a lot of the text would start with uncle and so on, which I thought was okay. It's kind of cute,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know whether I don't want to be the nation's uncle in that sense. I mean, I do, but if you just want me to listen, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So that's the kind of messages you get your Angel and so on. So a
Mm.
lot of the time, I stop trying to say anything. Probably I'll just say, may Allah help you, may Allah ease you, and so
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
that's all the messages that I will just put up. Just say,
Mm.
I feel you basically, but there's really nothing I can do about it. And some of the times that I wish I could say something like, you know what you should have done? You shouldn't even have married the guy. But I can't say that.
If only you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. So I can't say things like that. These things could have been avoided.
If you.
If you had done, you let love blinded you. You left all these things. I couldn't say that. But that's basically what some of these things need. So, but the problem is, if I say that, then they say, what's the point? I'm already married.
True.
So what
Yeah.
can I do
Damage
now?
has been done.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so and so much so sometimes to the point I would like to say leave them, but I
Mm.
can't do that either. So I
Yeah.
said, so
It's a tricky
it's
situation. You can't
yeah,
tell them what to do because you want them to figure out for
yeah,
themselves. And I think before I get to my next point, I how it must have some sort of an effect on you when people just dump their problems on you.
mm.
Do you feel like it ever affected your mental health?
I got a few questions which ask me that.
Yeah.
I would say the answer is no. I guess in the sense that I've been, I work. One of the places I told you earlier, I work in TAP.
Yeah.
TAP actually has, does not allow you to withdraw your money until you retired and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the early days, there were quite a number of people who actually came up to me and tell me issues about their lives, why I needed this money. So I've known, for a while what problems people are having. Then when I was permanent secretary of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, welfare is one of our. So I would be chairing committees. I would be, we see all these problems, face to face. I've seen all these problems. These are nothing new to me.
Yeah.
So when I did my NGL, these are just, more personalized experiences of problems rather
Yeah.
than seeing it at a society level. I see it now from a personal perspective. So it didn't bother me in the
Okay.
sense that your problem didn't bother the bother I get is that I can't do anything about it.
Okay.
So that's the pressure I get.
Yeah.
So where I can help, then I will certainly push it to one of the organization and said, so what can you do with this person? Sometimes we'll just reach out to them and say, can you DM me privately so that we could look at this. So there are things which I do. But in general, they just want to be out there. Society, there's so much pressure that everyone is facing. You're pressured. You have to pass exams. You have to go through schools. You have to pass university. You have to find work now. So that's again, that's again a big pressure. Once you find work, you have to get married. It's all this. So you get pressures throughout your life. It's just a matter of how much. So you get to meet people on NGL, which comes at these various levels. People who can't find work. What can you do to help me get through the interviews and so on? So we try to be helpful, but there's only certain things that we can do. So, and then I can't find a wife, I can't find a husband. Again, that's another pressure. So when you get married, my husband's not listening to me. My children are this and that. So you know you get this pressure throughout your life. You're lucky if you have a support system that helps you. You're lucky if you have a parents who sort of you can go to.
It's a
And
privilege.
yeah, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
So what happens if you don't have all that? So sometimes my friends are asking, why are you attending all these questions? I said, there are many people out there who are not as privileged as you.
Oh my God.
You get to go to school. You get to get a job. These people can't even find jobs. These people can't even find a husband or wife or whatever. So I said it's easy for you to talk about from your position. So some people were just saying you could some of these people some of these things are Googleable. You can Google them.
Sebenarnya,
Yeah,
yeah.
sebenarnya. Tapi I said do they know how? Even Googling is not easy because you get like hundreds and thousands of informations out there. Which one do you want to look out for? So if you're not educated enough, or you're probably at that point in time your life is so messed up, you don't really know what to look out for. And I guess in that sense the NGL helps. So to get a focus direction of anything.
Like someone directly.
Yeah, so again, like I said, being the elder person, people just go to you and said, "Oh, you're the elder person. Please help me. You must know something." Yeah. So, and that's the pressure in some sense for me too, because I said, what can I do?
Have you ever been invited to motivational talks in schools?
I've done a couple, but not so much on motivation. I think in the early days, it was because normally the English departments would call me
Okay.
to do because of writing and so on.
Okay. How about
But
after the NGL?
the NGL, no. I think
I
I
feel
had.
like people should. If this is the actual, if there's a lot of students reaching out to you asking for advice,
Yeah,
like,
I don't know really because schools have their own systems and so on, and the ministry have its own set of counselors. I'm not trained as a counselor. That's one.
okay,
So whatever advice I give
it's
is not
strictly
so
from your.
strictly from my personal experiences and so on. So I'm not trained as a counselor. So
Mm,
that again probably limits what I can do or I can say. So it like for just because I've lived longer on this earth.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing that I have
Yeah.
going for me. It's not so
Oh.
much about whether you're cleverer, it's just that you're more experienced. You've
Mm.
seen all this. And it also helps simply because I've gone through many different kind of agencies and so on. And I
Mm.
also live a different kind of life. I live in a hostel. I know what it feels like to be bullied. I know what it feels like to live alone and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
that sort of helped me in answering some of the questions which.
Yeah.
So when you have your own personal experience to go back to, you
Yeah.
know how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Now that you mentioned that you've lived alone and you've experienced bullying,
yeah.
do you think those are the experiences that developed your empathy and compassion? Because it does take a lot of patience for someone to be receiving all these questions about other people's personal lives. Sometimes, like for me, whenever
Mm,
like my friends go to me for advice,
yeah.
it depends on my mood at the time. Sometimes
Yeah.
I can be compassionate, but if it's repetitive, I'm like, can you
Yeah.
just
Yeah. I know.
like deal with it? Like your problem is actually not as big
Yeah.
as you make it seem, you know?
I guess it depends on. I think mine is so much of. I think it's your DNA basically.
Yeah, so you've always been a
Yeah,
nurturing
yeah. So it's always been
person.
that kind of. I didn't want it to be. I don't think I believe I wanted it to be of anything. It's just that it's there.
Mm.
And also, I spent 30 years in government. I mean, I couldn't just say go away. So you learn how to answer questions. You learn how to tell
Yeah.
people
I mean, you
politely.
out of,
Yeah.
you know,
So so
so you're a rare breed. Sebenarnya.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, there are many things which drive you. I mean, for me, it's basically of experiences. Where you work and so on. So, and also because of you yourself, because
Mm.
I know what it feels like. Worrying about things. I know what it feels like. We I mean, our family is okay. We're well, but we're not. We've seen wealthy families and so who don't have to worry about anything. So
Mm.
in our case, and also because most of the time, I will live in a hostel, even though we've got friends and everything. But it's not the same as being. It's not like today's hostel where you can actually contact your parents. In those days, it's like once you go away, you go away.
And you don't see them until,
Yeah, yeah. Don't
yeah.
sit down until you come back and so on. So
Mm.
so those were the days, and you
Oh,
don't call. There's no calls. So in those days, when you disappear.
yeah.
So those were the kind of situations which you face. In
Mm.
today's world, you never really. I mean, my son,
Have
when
access to you
yeah,
whenever he
yeah.
wants. Yeah.
So he'll just go do a quick text. I need this. I need this.
Yeah.
Can you help me look up for this? So
Odo.
so those are the things which you can do now, but
Mm.
back then you can't do.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Oh my
So
god.
that's the kind of upbringing you have. So
Yeah.
when things are different,
Mm.
so now I can see. Now the worst thing today is what's happening today is that people are in contact everywhere. You've got
Mm.
friends, you've got relatives, but suddenly you realize that you can even reach out to them. Do you realize that?
Yes.
You can reach out to them. You've got all these problems. Who do I talk to? Which of my friends I can talk to
Oh
without
my god, that's so
safely.
true. Yeah, yeah.
So this is what's happening. I mean, this is what's
Mm.
driving the angel. We got a lot of these people who are not able to speak their mind to each other. Especially when you can even speak to your husband, or your
Yeah.
wife for that
Yeah.
matter. So it's worrying. So you've got all this pressure being cooked up in the world of communication, in the world of information, and suddenly you
This is the
can't.
drawback.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't do that
Yeah.
because
Because there's so much, there's
uh,
unlimited access that you actually don't know where to look for
yeah,
it and where to start and who to speak
yeah,
to.
and that's the worrying bit. Who can you safely talk to without people saying it's your fault, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't do that. So I kasihan. Really, sometimes I pity, especially I pity, and I know the young wives out there, who probably by now regretted who they married,
Yeah.
they have children and so on. And you got questions like my husband is not giving me nafka. Oh, there was a big topic about nafka at one stage.
Oh my god.
That kind of questions. I
Yeah.
don't get anything. That kind of text that you receive. I don't get anything. My husband is not paying this. I
Aduh.
have to pay for this and so on. I pity them.
Yeah.
Because literally there is. What can you do?
Yeah.
the only thing I could say is leave them. But then, what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your children and so on? So you got that stage where a lot of people are trapped.
Yeah.
So they're already trapped in their mind and they're trapped in their lives, And if you multiply that across the society, my God, it's scary, yeah. It's quite scary. So the problem with that, it leads to the next generation. You get children who are, you know, so and because they go to school, the teachers now are affected. So you got this chain reaction of society happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I always fear
Yeah.
for because everything starts from your household, your
Yeah.
parents, and your parents also have baggage.
Yes.
So, w- how do you think can that be dealt with? You feel like?
It's but there are quite a few people who will actually be able to come out of it. Those who are
Yeah, they don't let
they
their
don't,
past
yeah.
define
But
them.
there are quite a number of other people who will just
Accept their fate.
accept it and so on and just
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah.
So it is worrying because, and also worry in the sense that some of this, I'm not blaming systems or anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there are people who when we started the PKBN, the national, what do you call it, uh,
What PKB?
the one that
Sorry, what's PKBN?
it's the equivalent of a national service.
Okay.
The where you go to a 3 months camp, in Tumburong now.
Okay.
Okay, so when we first started the program, then we realized that one of the things which, when we started this, we realized that quite a few of these, they're all 18 and above, the 16 and above, I think 16 and above. Some of them went through the entire education system without learning anything. We had people who couldn't read and write or couldn't even say Al-Fatiha and so on. It's kind of scary, they're actually people who dropped out completely and not get anything out of their life.
Oh my
So
god.
this is why inside the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, we started what we call the Pusat Pembangunan Belia, the
Okay.
PPB.
Oh,
This
PPB. I know
yeah,
PPB.
yeah.
We've shot the
PPB
PPB.
is in Tanah Jambu. Tanah
Yes.
Jambu. PPB, accepts students to do all sorts of things.
Okay.
The only criteria is they're able to read and write. So because we realized that there are quite a number of people who actually went through life without, for whatever reason, they sit down quietly at the back, they get through life, they get passed on and passed on and passed on, and then eventually the school system is over, and they get nothing out of it. So PPB, not that I'm not that I'm trying to do no,
Promote.
promote
Yeah.
anything, but PPB, I remember one of the programs we did was we started heavy vehicle driving license. So a lot of people, you see, to get a license to drive a vehicle is quite expensive.
Okay.
So there's schools doing it, but it's very, very expensive. So I remember the first group of about 12 students we took in. These are all the unemployed youth. And we did the course is only about 5 weeks or 6 weeks or so, trying to learn. So paid for by the government. And what we found out was all 12 eventually, all 12, they all got jobs as
Wow.
heavy, to drive the tankers and whatever. And one of them was actually earning from $0, he was unemployed, to earning $1,600 a month with all the overtime. And he was so grateful. Wow, I've never earned money. Suddenly I'm
Yeah.
getting $1,600. It was like,
That's
you know, yeah.
crazy.
So I was thinking to myself, some of the solutions are quite easy. In other
Yeah.
words, heavy vehicle, because we got a lot of foreign drivers actually doing heavy vehicle. That could be done by locals,
There you go.
but of course, this has what we call barriers of entry. Simply because it's not easy for you to get heavy goods. I mean, it already costs you money even trying to get you a driving license,
Yeah.
but a heavy goods
It's
vehicle
even
is
more.
average. Yeah, it's even more.
Yeah.
So there's some of these things which, some of the solutions are, I would say, low hanging fruit. So it's not
Yeah.
that hard to get, but we do need to get something done. In other words, we have to organize it. We have to do something about it. The only problem is it's going to cost you. So, and the difficulty with it, we're trying to deal with a whole range of society. How do we deal with everyone at the same time? So that's a big problem. So these are some of the things we're seeing. But to be able to to be able to actually handle a lot of this requires resources. I know people like we got the Talian Harapan 141 and so on. I don't know how well they're men, but but sometimes I have a feeling there's not enough people to handle all these things. So people are not reaching out to them. So they're just keeping it to themselves. They're bottling it up within themselves. So whatever we talked about, it's always been about pressure. So it's pressure of society, pressure of anything. But the worst thing is, the way I see it is that in today's modern world, where you can talk to anybody with your phone, you can connect to anybody, and you can't talk to them. And that's the worst part. You go through life not being able to talk to anyone about your problem. And that's just scary. Sometimes I feel that too. I wake up I don't sleep, say 2 o'clock in the morning. There's certain things I want to talk it out to people. But the first question I have to ask myself is that, who can I talk to? And the second question I need to ask, can I even talk to them about what problems I'm facing? So we go through life. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, and the worst thing is the worst thing I feel for these people is that they wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's just another day. This is another day of problem that I have to go through. Yeah, it's scary. It's sometimes when I said, I could just, I don't know, I just like to do a hug service, come and hug me. That kind of thing,
they just need comfort.
Yeah, they just need comfort. They just need to know that, okay, someone's carrying out for me today and so on. So this is why I said to, I have not said it, I've said it to a few people. I said, look, when you go to work, just hug your wife. Nothing, you just hug them. Especially now that I've missed my own. So, just hug them early in the morning, just before you go to work. You're going to go your separate ways. You're not really going to see each other, especially both of you are working. But that little thing in the morning, that little something in the morning sort of helped you. So I think we stop physical hugging. And I wish we do that. We just some problems are not some problems are easy to fix. They just want love. They just want you to know, look, talk to me. Let me know what's happening. What can I do to help you? It's not that hard. So if you start to do that at family level, and then if you go to work, you're the boss, you're the supervisor, and so on. Okay, what's going on? So what I used to do, I remember, I don't know whether it's a good advice to young officers. What I used to do when I was working is that I would get my secretary to prepare me a list of birthdays of everybody in the office.
Okay.
So do it in a month basis. So then you look out. I used to do what I call, it's an old style of management, which I don't know whether people still do. I call it management by walking about. So
by walking about.
Yeah. So what I do is I get this list and I say, oh, okay, it's this person's birthday today. I always walk about 10 o'clock in the morning. I would go about walking around the office. Walk around the office, go to everyone's table and say, So it's just a matter of, if it's the birthday of that person, just say, oh, happy birthday, Are you celebrating it? It's just a matter of, it's no big deal in the sense that you have all the data. It's just a matter of effort going out of your office and going to them. And then, of course, at the same time, while you're going out, you're seeing, people are saying, oh, you got photos of children. They always have that on their tables.
Yeah, they do.
I say, so berapa umurnya, apa ta? And then sometimes you can say, sakit je tunajinya. And then, of course, the next year you remember, say, okay, sudah, It doesn't take much to be empathic. It doesn't take much. It's just a matter of willing to go out there. So, and then, of course, eventually over time, they will start to talk about to you and say, jamban atunya macam, then of course you get to, that thing after, then you looked after, So once you get to that level, people are happy to open up to you and say, I can't come to work today because anak kuich balik. Yes, I say, fine, so people are more honest in what they do. So they're not scared of, when I was working as, when you become permanent secretary and so on, I've got departments who came up to me and said, our director is not listening to us, that kind of thing, which I thought is a pity, because if you want to have more productivity and so, it just doesn't take very long. You just get your bosses to walk around you, just to see what your people are facing. You don't know until you actually go down and see what's going on. Then this is an advice I always give to my young officers. I said, look, just because you happen to have a degree, just because you have to have a job which says pagawa in front of it or pangarao, whatever it is, it doesn't make you any better if you don't do this.
Yeah.
People will not approach you. People will not come up with problems to you. And you will not know what's happening because they don't come up to you. They're just hiding from you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think when you said that, right, obviously that's like the better approach.
Yeah.
But I feel like some people who hold positions in like power, they
Yeah.
actually don't want to be seen as approachable. They like being seen as I call this menganjong culture. They like to be anjonged.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like
It's like I said, there are two ways of doing this. I said you can be a disciplinarian and make yourself aloof from everybody else because you're the boss. And I don't know, in some sense, get it done because people are scared of you. But the other way is what I do is that, you don't want people to be scared of you. It may take a longer time. Okay, some people complain to me and said, your method is just, it might not, I said, you have not tried it.
yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it depends on upbringing because I've always been, living in different districts and so on. So I've known what people are like,
Yeah, and you
So
know how to adapt.
yeah. So in that sense, I know what it feel like, and that's why I guess if you live in a privileged situation where everything is given to you and so on, so and you probably might not see that. You probably might just say, I get to where I want because I work hard. Yeah, fine. It's okay for you to get where you are. A lot of the people I speak to, at the lower, it's not so much about we don't care about how you get there. But the point is, you are there. Help us.
Yeah.
That's all they're asking. Help us.
Oh my god, this is very
Yeah.
interesting because I remember having conversations like this with people who said that I got to where I am because I work hard.
Yeah.
So like because of that, they are projecting that to other people who they assume is going through the same thing as they do, in a sense where I'm not going to help you because nobody helped me
Yeah.
when I was in that situation. So why should I help you?
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of toxicity in that
Yeah.
kind of mindset but if you're in a position to help someone, why not extend a hand, right?
Yeah. This is always a problem which people are facing. Sometimes they
Are
come
people
up.
just angry here? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about society actually in some sense. It's just that everybody tends to look out for themselves, which I thought is a pity. I mean, it's okay for you to look out for yourself. I don't mind, you don't care.
Yeah.
You need. I mean, you deserve it. You studied hard. You should be there, but it doesn't mean that you should, treasure the people that are working for you. A lot of people actually are happy working for bosses. That's not an issue. Their big issue is that the bosses are not looking out for them. That's what you're earning your $3,000, $4,000. I don't care. I'm only earning my $500. That's fine, But don't make my $500 any to the point that I don't even want to come to work. So I don't care about you. I don't care about your 4,000. So a lot of people are thinking like people hate them because they're not trying to improve the life of people who are working under them. That's always a problem. So it's quite easy. Sometimes it just take a little bit of empathy. I mean, even people say I can't come because my anak sakit. Then you start to come up with can I see the MC? Can I see this? Can I see them? Sometimes I just say take the word for it. Sometimes anaknya might not be sakit ke apakah, tapi they have a problem. But what happen if they if they take you will know when people are habitual. You will know.
Yeah.
But the odd ones you will I know they wouldn't be like that. I mean, they are genuine. Tapi sometimes because they're so scared of you, they're not even telling you.
The
So
truth, yeah.
yeah, so it's quite scary because, and after a while, you realize there are people who have problems. I mean, especially women. Women, sometimes when they have their, I shouldn't mention this word, but periods and so on. Some of them have it worse than others. Some of them sampai sekarang the whole day itu sakit, apakah with PMS and so on. So you have to accept that there are certain people who are less healthier or have more sensitive problems, more whatever, There are people like that. So it's just a matter of for you to say, okay, fine. We know for one day, a month, this is what's going to happen to her. This is no. So it's just a matter of you realizing that. But once you have established that kind of trust, then it's easy. One of the difficulties sometimes, especially in government where we have to do work late because certain things. But if they don't trust you, nobody really wants to work for you. They will just disappear.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of this thing is back to trust. A lot of this thing is back to looking after each other. A lot of this thing is about being able to communicate to one another.
I think respect is also very important.
Yeah, respect is more. Yeah. But in Brunei, it's quite easy to, in the sense that the respect itu comes because of kita ni, we used to apa ni orang, kalau orang tu tua, orang tu hold position, so we know, to the point we know kalau macam even during wedding invitations and so on kan, that table is reserved for no, you cannot sit there, we sit here. We know our position in society and so on. Ita sometimes when your elderly going around, kenapa kita sini salah niya, you should be, so we know that kind of position. That respect that's easy to get. But the point is whether they trust you enough, whether they respect you because of your position or whether they respect you because they like you. It's a different kind of respect.
That's true.
Yeah, so and sometimes things are not hard to do. Seriously, things are not hard to do. One of my friends, former CTFO Gama, we were talking once. I said, about orang minta sedekah and so on. I said, I don't trust them. You if you sedekah to these people, accept it as sedekah. Artinya, if he's not genuine, that's his problem. But in your case, you bagi saya, so itu sajanya. Jangan tadi pikirkan sangatnya about
what they do
with it, which I thought was a good advice because because this is why we become distrustful of people. I don't want to give money to you, but I think you are this and this. Which, but if you give money to them, up to them lah. If they're not genuine, then no loss on your part,
because you can't control them anyway.
So there's a lot of things. So a lot of the things are easy to do. It's just a matter of you sendiri having this empathy. So it's always back to empathy. Empathy is, I think, to me, as an essential tool. Ganyan, unfortunately, when we do recruits, we don't look into this. We look at your qualification, your experience, your ini. But how do we judge them
as a person?
Yeah, how do we judge them? We can't judge it. Probably we do. We have this we have this psychometric test, and so but psychometric test is not really a good judge in terms of character. It's a good judge in terms of whether this person is a leader, a follower, a team worker, that kind of thing. Tapi this is where empathy comes in. Where the empathy is. And one of the if you could sort of go into Gamma, Sayyidina Umar, when he was the Khalifa, he was accused of apa namanya ni, of this, what do you call this, yang mengambil kerja-kerjanya among your friends and families and so on. There's a word for it.
Apa? Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Okay.
Tapi he wasn't doing that. Ia punya pengambilan is actually based on how orang itu with his faith. Unfortunately, yang the faith ni semua kawan-kawannya lah. Because he believed that he started off with ugama. It started off with, if you have a strong ugama, it doesn't matter what position you fill, you can be able to do your job because you believe in something. So it's a journey. So if we look at empathy as a reason for employment, I'm sure we would turn out into a better society. Itu saja. So this is something that barangkali we're not able to fix very quickly lah, because there's no way of judging it. You can only
There's
see
no,
a person or two until
yeah. Until you
So
speak to
yeah,
them, you
this,
get to
but
know
yeah.
them.
But empathy, I believe, is a very apa namanya tu, a very important trait for any leader to have.
That's true.
Yeah, for any officer, especially at that level, you need to have
Yeah.
empathy. So once you have empathy, then obviously sanang kehidupan eh. Tapi
True.
itu tu kanya, how do you get there? And then of course empathy is, people say I'm not born to be empathic. Yeah, you don't have to.
No, yeah.
You don't have to be born to be empathic. It's just a matter of you for understanding the sensitivity of certain things.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to be kind, friendly, ka apa ka. Tapi the fact is, you wake up in the morning, people are happy to see you come to work. I've got departments, I've got officers dulu who come up to me and say, bila kami melihat keretanya pun sudah kami tungkal banyak.
Aduh.
Yeah, to that point. Ada. There are certain officers. I mean, I used to have one. I wouldn't say di mana. I would say what year. They would give it away. We know tu. Melagor sa pintu keretanya tu. Tahu tak kami tu. We can hear it.
It's him.
The secretary would just before we come up to see him, the first thing we have to ask the secretary is, apa nginarin ya?
Aduh, that's so bad.
Yeah. And how do you get things done when you're even too scared to go in and ask, So that's not the kind of office I like.
Yeah.
Not the kind of, I like the kind of people have a problem and say, Tunaji, we have a problem here.
Yes.
Can we solve this? So I say, yeah. So don't punish them. Don't do anything. It may be their fault. If you can salvage the whole thing, everything is apa namanya tu? Everything is salvageable. Everything can be done. Everything can be worked out. It's just a matter of you trusting me, so that we can do things.
Yeah.
So and that's what the NGL is all about. The NGLs are just asking, what can I've got this problem. What can I do? That's all they're asking. Or rather, and even that sometimes I can't help them because there's no way of you. Sometimes I wish I said, can you contact me so that we can work something out? Tapi, just said, tinggal saja tu.
Yeah.
And I worry too because there's a lot of this angel which have no answer.
True.
Now that I've stopped it, lagi they don't have a place for them to express it.
Yeah.
So which is a pity lah. Sayang, I wish I can continue. I might continue one day, but
not now.
Not now. Let me take my break for a while. So I just hope I can only offer my prayers for those people.
Before we wrap, I just wanna go back to your NGL ito.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read the post that you posted, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you said it's been a long journey when you first started the NGL. It was a way to fill up your time after your wife passed away, and then you started it thinking you would answer questions about Brunei, and then slowly it gravitated to to people asking questions, seeking advice and assistance. And then you talked about the number of visitors and questions you received. So you said here, that caught my attention. There are agencies and staff who hated what you were doing, and especially in highlighting issues in their organizations. And you also received texts who hated what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
And then you said 1 year is long enough to collect friends and enemies. So I want to ask you, what type of enemies did you make?
Well, I wouldn't say any particular kind of enemies, but you can't help by I was highlighting deficiencies in departments, deficiencies in government organization, not just them, but also in private sector and so on. So, by highlighting deficiencies, you're already talking about the management of those places, so obviously some of the people are not comfortable. Maybe I was a bit too forceful using the word hate, but definitely uncomfortable is one.
Okay.
Is something which people may, and in some sense it also forces them to react.
Okay.
So government agencies, I used to work in many of them. When we're not comfortable in the sense that when we get pressurized, so that's one. I to say enemies, I would say there are people there are enough people out there probably who don't like me.
Okay.
Especially when you start highlighting issues and so on. I get, maybe they've not been vocal about it, but some people who happen to be at the wrong end of those complaints, obviously, some of them may be taken to task by the supervisors, by the directors, and so on, and say, why happened? What did you do? So I'm beginning, I'm thinking some of those people are not liking me in that sense.
Yeah.
So to say who hated me, I can't say who really, but I'm just getting a general sense of when people text you in your in jail and say, I don't like you, you know. So, but that's life, I can't please everybody. I mean,
That's true.
that's why it's in some sense I just wanted to talk about Brunei.
Yeah.
There was a very much safe topic,
Yeah.
but the moment it goes into personal issues, the moment
Yeah.
it goes into relationship issues, the moment it goes into between communication issues between agencies and the public and so on, of course, this is what will happen.
Yeah. Do you remember when it started to pivot from
Not
Brunei
really. I mean,
things?
it's always been there. It's always been there. It's
So
just,
you've always received.
it's just been there because you can't help it.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
will
True.
be people who don't like you. But I think it's just that is whether I can receive them well.
Yeah.
So my sense probably is that the numbers would probably increase because the complaints would be like. There are always issues about government services, obviously, because we're trying to provide services to the entire country.
Yeah.
And of course, there are varying degrees of level of quality and so on. And also depends on the people who work there because they're also humans. So, they may have their off days. So if you happen to have somebody who happen to have an off days, or maybe also there's some who are probably thinking like, hey, hang on, I'm the boss here, So that kind of thing. It does happen,
Yeah.
people that you want to meet. So one of the solutions. Oh, sorry, I may just go back to when I was the managing director of TAP. I always try to get the front counter to answer the question exactly what should the front counter be saying.
Okay.
But Bruneians being Bruneians, they would say, I don't want to hear you. I want to hear it from him. So they want to hear it from the big bosses, obviously,
Okay.
which is the
The
Brunei,
puas hati lah, takut ditambus.
Brunei culture. So normally before I see them, I would call up the front counter. What did you say to him? What advice did you say? Then when these people come up to me and said, I said exactly the same thing. I said, this is what was explained to you. This is what the situation is. So don't try to undermine your own stuff. So this is a problem sometimes when you see in government departments. Sometimes people don't say the same thing throughout the levels of the organization. So this is why people keep on insisting on, I want to see him, I want to see him. But at the same time, when you do that, you get supervisors who are angry at you, who might just be shouting at you and say, "Bapale ka na," that kind of thing. And which is a pity because, and I always tell my staff, I said, imagine you are on the other side of the counter. How would you want to be treated? If you don't want to be shouted at, you don't want to be, then this is how the way we should treat our people. This is sometimes which people, when they are, I can't blame them also because sometimes the number of people who come, there's certain organizations we have just overwhelmed with queries, with all sorts of things. I don't blame them. So you get to have a person who writes to me and say, I have an option whether to post it or not to post it. So if I do post it, I'll make that poster happier, but I will not make the person who he complains about happier. So you get enough of this thing. Then all those people are suddenly beginning to hate you. I say, oh no, not the one again. That kind of thing. So I also get government departments who just said, can you tell us more about that person? How can we help them? I said, I'm sorry because this is anonymous, so I can't really reach out to them. So there are people who are concerned, but not that many agencies. Now, obviously, not that many agencies worry about what's going on so and a lot of the time I try to make it anonymous anyway. So but the people who knows. Artinya, if you happen to be at the wrong end of it, you would know it was you. So if you happen to read it, so so I don't think so. I would by now I probably get enough people who hated me as well.
Oh,
There's still
because of that.
there's still probably people who like me more than people who
Oh,
hated me
yeah,
more.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tapi,
Mm,
yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess in some sense I was also looking out for. It's a good time to rest as any.
Mm,
So my ending post probably was just, I didn't really think much about it. I just say, okay, here's what it is. Let's put it out there.
yeah,
Let's just rest.
yeah.
It wasn't as if I was thinking for months ahead that I wanted to do this. It wasn't. It was just a spur of the moment
Moment,
thing. It
yeah,
said sudah
yeah,
enough dah. Let's rest for a while.
yeah. And also, one thing that you said, the one that broke the camel's back was when you received an accusation that you weren't fact checking as
Oh,
well.
that was no. I find that I find that no. You know, I think whoever posted that was probably right in some sense, that because I posted a lot of these things about complaints and so on. Probably not all of them were fact checked, in the sense that I don't have time. But then how do you fact check these complaints anyway? I mean,
Yeah,
so
I agree.
yeah. So
I
in
think
the
people are starting to forget that this is not your job.
yeah, so so I said, okay, I do the best that I can. There's
Yeah.
certain things I do. I mean, I've got friends out there, I've got officers out there who help me and so on. I'm
Mm,
thankful for that.
yeah.
But basically, you can't. So, but also at the same time, especially when you're receiving hundreds. So a lot of the time I would just say, okay, let's post this, as well, without really much thinking about the effect of it. But some of them, I may make it wrong. So sorry, I may get it wrong,
Mm.
and I probably get someone who texted me and said, I think salah kali tu niya. So then I
Ah,
would remove that.
okay.
So
Yeah.
maybe the damage has been done by that. I don't know,
Mm,
but
mm, mm.
but obviously it's all meant for good, rather
Yeah.
than it was never malicious in any sense. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was always trying to say, okay, there's a complaint about this department. We put it up there
Mm.
simply because I hope the department would look at it,
Yes.
make it
And
better, and
rectify
so
it
yeah.
and all that.
So yeah.
Do you remember if you made any sort of like unintentional mistake, the one that you can remember now that you
Oh,
yeah.
it's been quite a few actually. No,
What the
no,
biggest one that you feel like macam oh
not really.
nadala.
The big one, like,
Mm.
generally just tiny little ones. And normally that gets rectified. And sometimes other people complain to me about 2 days later. I said it's gone already. So it's way too late now.
Yeah.
So
Whoops.
yeah. But my worry is sometimes is that it gets screenshot, it gets passed around. So I know
Before you get
yeah.
to
So I
rectify.
know that happens. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
probably that happens. And I worry you too, because it wasn't meant to be like that, kan? Tapi suddenly it spreads around. And sometimes it comes back to me and said,
Yeah.
okay. I said, this came from my NGL.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
I did that ending post. I just needed to end it some ways. I knew that there's still a lot of people out there who needs help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll talk about opening it, but not right now lah.
Not right now.
Not right now.
Okay.
Probably one day. Tapi I don't think it will ever go. But yeah, the funny thing about all this, I remember I did the same thing with my blogspot.
Mm.
I ended it, and then after a while, I came back to it. It will never be the same. So So
Who knows? Is it in this? It could be in a different form, right?
we'll wait for the next app to come in.
Okay.
So
Threads.
there's
I already I saw you on threads.
I'm on threads. So
Yeah.
my threads, I'm everywhere, everywhere. I'm on TikTok. I'm on
Yeah.
threads.
There you go.
So just those are not the places where, I mean, some of these places I treat like as a playground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
threads is basically just information about photos and so
Mm.
on. My TikTok is even not even worthwhile for people to look at, unless you're interested in what flavor of
The
ice cream I eat.
playful side of you,
Yeah.
maybe.
So
Yeah.
but I'm beginning to see TikTok as something more serious.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there are serious stuffs now being discussed on TikTok. You'd
Yes.
be surprised.
Mm.
You're on it, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to look out for your posts actually. It's interesting because I see it from a different perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy doing all these things.
Yeah.
Just a matter of we need to communicate. That's all there is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think communication skills
yeah,
are severely lacking here
yep,
in our culture. Before we end,
yeah,
since you're taking like a break or time off now,
yeah.
what message would you like to give to the public?
Well, what we've been talking about today.
Okay.
Be kind to people. That's all there is. Be kind to people. Be empathic. Be, one of what I used to say to people is, especially for people in government, be nice to people on your way up, because you will meet them on your way down, and that really, really, that. So
My God.
that's all there is. Be nice to people. Be kind to people. We don't know what problems they're facing. They may look normal to you, but you don't know what kind of problems they're bottling up inside. All you have to do is give that empathy, give your friend a hug. That's all there is. That's all they require. They don't want your money.
No.
They may have money problem, but they don't want your money. They just want to know that you have a problem. That's all there is.
Oh
Be
my God.
nice
I
to
would
people.
like to repeat that.
Yeah.
Be nice to people on your way up because you will meet
Meet
them
them.
on your way down. And also, I want to add on that we always need to remember that whatever we have now, God can take it in a split second.
Yes.
So
That's all there is to
that's all there
life.
is. Okay, thank you so much. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tuan Haji Rozan Yunos, for spending the day with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.